recording as well. And yeah, I think it's time to roll. All right, welcome everybody, and Happy New Year to all that are on this call. This is the fourth webinar of the FIBA series that we started in November, and I remember November was not that long ago. We were walking around in short sleeves, and there was no snow. And here we are, barely a month later, and we're about into winter now. So, which spells the thick of the basketball season. And I do believe tonight's presentation is going to help us as we get into the thick of the season. Some people will arguably say that the most important function of a basketball official is to be a communicator. And I think that's mostly true. We can blow the whistle and we can make correct calls, but if we don't communicate properly, a lot of times our credibility immediately goes down. So tonight's presentation is Communicate Professionally and with Purpose. It's featuring Matthew Kallio. Matthew received his FIBA card a couple of years ago, and he certainly has wasted no time in making his mark. He started this year with the D-League. This summer he was at the Pan American Games and at the FIBA Americas in Edmonton. He's refereed several national championships, and things are certainly looking up for Matthew. So I'll pass things over to Matt, and I'll let him take over. Go ahead, Matt.
Perfect. Thanks, Jake. I'm just going to start here and get right into it. If people can't hear me, then let me know and we'll figure that out. But first of all, Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for having me. As Jake mentioned, I really believe that communication is the key to success, and what the highest level officials and the best in our profession, they definitely communicate at a higher level and with a certain confidence that allows them to be the best in the profession. So I apologize in advance. I do have a little bit of a cold, so I'm losing my voice, but that means I'll have to be short and succinct and make sure I don't keep you too long. So for tonight, you're going to just talk a little bit about some fundamentals of communication to start. So first of all, it's verbal. What we say, how you say it. We're going to talk about different parties and how you can communicate between those different parties in a game and also off the floor. But really the big thing is how you say it, how you word it. How you word it isn't so much the issue, it's exactly your tone of voice, your confidence, things that come through. Then we've got our nonverbal, our body language, facial expression. You can say it great, you can have a nice tone to it, but you have a look of disgust on your face, we can all read through that. And then lastly, professionalism. It's mandatory to be professional at all times. There's no excuses. There's no times to lapse. All of our games are now pretty much on film, and a parent will have a camcorder, so you're under the microscope at all times, and people will find any reason to put the game on you. So professionalism is just mandatory. So who we communicate with, very quickly here, we got our crew, other fellow referees off the floor, assigner evaluators, coaches, players, table, and most importantly, I think, ourselves. So today we're going to work on or talk about self-talk, and then also talk about communicating with our partners as an emphasis. Talking with players and coaches, that just comes with time, and that's can get a little bit messy, and that's a full another presentation, so we'll avoid that. So today, self and partners, as I talked, some of the keys with that I really believe are the importance of self-talk is it prepares you. It prepares you in game situations. It prepares you off the floor. It keeps you focused. And really, if you're prepared and you're focused, you're able to answer questions when they arise. So you're nipping it in the butt before that question even happens. You have an answer that's going to sound intelligent, smart, and make sure that you're confident when you're coming across. And then our partner communication, what we'll focus on is, I really think it's important to your success on and off the floor. Ultimately, if you can't communicate with the people that you work with, your career is probably going to be pretty short, or for lack of a better term, not as successful as you may want it to be. Fans, coaches, players, media will find any reason to dislike us. We only have one another. So if you're not going to treat the people around you with respect, then you may as well just fall into another category and become a fan, coach, player, or the media. Because at the end of the day, it's really about sticking together. So, and again, I apologize with my voice here cutting in and out and clearing my throat. But start with self-talk, purposeful. It has to be meaningful to you. What I do and some of the things I'm going to share right away here will not necessarily work for you, but at least there's some examples to get you start thinking about how self-talk can work. Make it short, key action words. It's not a dialogue or conversation. Okay, you're not going to look like a crazy person on the floor, lips moving, talking to yourself out loud. But you have to have something that's succinct. And then I really, excuse me, I really feel the importance of using the rule book verbiage, especially for newer officials. If you're having troubles communicating, with your partners or, different parties within the game, whether it's the table crew, players, coaches, use the rule book. You get in the rule book, learn the terminology, it'll really help you out. And then, as we talked about, self-talk is important for focus and preparation. So for me, I think of it as it's piecing together a puzzle with the game. So first 5 minutes of the first quarter, last 5 minutes of any quarter, or the last 5 minutes of the game. So that's already some of my self-talk. First 5, I want to be nails, strong first call. Last 5, have to be nails. Everybody remembers the last 5 minutes of the game. And then I break it into chunks, my puzzles, every 24 seconds that we come down the floor. Every time that shot clock's reset to 14 or 24, it's a new piece of the puzzle. So just some examples here to get you thinking and some things to maybe add into your toolkit. Some self-talk for dead ball officiating. So when I'm a non-calling official, my partner has a foul across the floor. Here's my mindset in my head. So I look at the game clock, then I go shot clock. I want to know where the point of interruption or who our shooter is, who fouled that player, and then I want to make sure the benches are okay. And I go through in this order. So for example, if the whistle blew across the floor, I'm going to say 10:24, shot clock's at 13. Okay, number 24 is going to the line for 2. Number 13 blew, fouled them. Benches are good. And I'm going through this in my head, but sometimes I'll verbalize it too. Some of those things, you'll say 24 is on the line, and then your offending player or who the foul was on, keep that in check. The announcer says foul is on 11 blue. Blow your whistle, tell your partner, hey partner, foul is on 13, correct? Get it right at the table. But this is some of the things that I go through on a non-calling. If I am the calling official, that order switches up a little bit. All right, who fouled them? Blue 13. What foul detail? And what I mean by that, I want to know exactly what that player did. If it's a shooting foul and we have a perimeter like a three-point shot, I don't want to say, well, it got him on the arm. I want to know where they got them on the arm. Was it on the elbow? Was it on the wrist? Was it a flick? Was it no landing space? So know that detail, because if you know that detail beforehand, then when someone does come to you on the floor, a coach or a player, you have specifics. Then you got to know your shooter or your point of interruption again. Are you going side out or was it a shooting foul? And know your game clock, know your shot clock, know your benches. Okay, and if we do this, if you do that as a calling official and your partners do something along the same lines as a non-calling official, now we're eliminating chances of making errors. Hey, team foul should be at 4. You look at the table, get them put 4 up on the team fouls because you know where the team fouls are at. So, and during the dead ball, foul or violation, everybody on the crew needs to be aware: players, benches, team fouls, player fouls. Okay, first 5, last 5. First 5 of the game, okay, number 12 starter, our 3 guard, second personal foul. Okay, hold on here. Coach is probably going to sub. Okay, subs at the table, bring them in. So already in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we got a starter with 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game. Coach is probably going to sub. It prepares you for what possibly would happen. With that said, we can't always give coaches credit. Maybe they're making a strategic decision that they just need that person in the game because they don't have a deep bench, or maybe a coach just doesn't realize. But have that in your toolbox. Have that in your toolkit. Live ball, just again, some different scenarios. I use on and off. I think of light switch, on ball, off ball. And the premise with that is you have to know what your primary is. If you don't know your primary, you don't know when you'll need to be on ball or off ball. If you don't know what your primary is, if your partners don't know the primary, on and off isn't going to work so well. But again, getting that self-talk, on, off, on, off. And I'm saying this in my head. If I'm in lead, I know, some people struggle with rotations. When should I go? When that ball settles, I have my starting point. Ball starts to go to the other side. Okay, I'm closing down to outside lane line. Ball starting to settle. Pinch. Okay, it's stayed. I'm going to go. And eventually that becomes fluent. You don't actually say those words in your head, but I'm like, okay, starting point, settle, go, and then you're there on time, ready for that competitive matchup. Engage, unengage. So you're a center official. You have a matchup. Is it engaged or is it unengaged? Okay, do you have a help side defender that has both feet inside the paint and their offensive players outside the three-point line? All right, we don't need to necessarily have 100% focus on that matchup. You might have a perimeter screen or something happen at the elbow where you can help out your trail. So knowing where to look. And are you open or are you closed? Okay, so I have an open look, closed look. I'm in the lead, curl away, stay away. Okay, so these are things that I use in my toolbox that help me decide on plays, decide when to put that air in my belly versus have that air high in my lungs to blow on a whistle. Okay, so it helps with patience, it helps with call selection. Something also too, weak side shot, strong side shot. So if I'm in trail and I have a shot coming from the weak side or in front of our center, well, center, if they're looking at that shot now. So if my center is watching that shot, who's going to help on the weak side block on rebounding action? Because we can't expect center to be with that shot the entire time, then turn their eyes off to the rebounding action, because by the time that foul occurs, we've missed it as a crew, and we're guessing. So if I know that shot's coming from strong side in front of lead or in front of myself, okay, I know I have perimeter rebounding. So I know where to shift my eyes based on exactly what's happening. Do I got to stay at the shooter or do I need to go to rebounding action? And then specific plays or scenarios. So I just wanted to use an example of fast break. If you're having a fast break, in my head I'm saying, is it a clear path? Do we have unsportsmanlike? And a possibility of a goaltend? And every single time I'm thinking these three things are possibly going to happen. So I know I'm going rather quick here, just so I can stay on time for you guys. But if there's questions, we'll definitely get to those at the end. And in the slides, I did put a little bit more information just so you can read it or take it away. We'll focus on the key points here. So partner communication, for me, the purpose of it is to just promote learning and development. We want to get better as a basketball officiating crew, and we want to just improve the game. So our whole goal is to improve the game, to service the game, take care of the game. The game always comes first, okay? But in order to do that, I really believe you have to put yourself first. If you internalize, it allows you to be honest, sincere, transparent with those around you, allows you to be humble, have some humility, be honest, be willing to be wrong, but put it on yourself, challenge yourself, because the better you are at being honest with yourself, the better you'll be at being a crewmate and helping out the people that you work with. And that's every level. My never evers, these are my 4 pet peeves, and you see them every year. I continue to see them. I've been very fortunate to be down in the States for the majority of my season, and I come back and I still see stuff like this, and you're probably a little bit more aware of it because I'm the fly on the wall now. But never embarrass a fellow referee, never demean or talk negatively of them, never draw unnecessary attention to them. And this is something more and more now that I'm seeing, particularly at college or university level. And the intent necessarily isn't bad, but don't communicate to coaches, referees, fans about the refereeing crew that was currently working, or that's the future referee crew for the next evening. So if you're working on the Friday night and you know who's working on the Saturday night, that's the coach's job to figure out through arbiter who's working the next night. You should have no opinions about the next crew. You should have no opinions about the crew that just worked. Your opinions stay within our group because we only have one another. And if you're going to bring in someone else into our circle, I'm sorry, they're not welcome. They're not welcome until they put on the gray jersey. They're not welcome until they put on the stripes. So take care of each other. These sound like really simple things, but reflect on it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever embarrassed one of your peers? Have you ever embarrassed somebody that you worked with indirectly without realizing that you brought some attention to them? So I think that's a really big point that helps you become a better person and a better crewmate. Definitely with the emphasis of video right now, plays, clips, video, anything to do with our communication in the locker room, focus on the why and how for the correct and incorrect. Don't say right or wrong, just why did we get it right? How do we improve next time? Why did we get it wrong? Okay, how do we improve next time? Use the why and how. Use that why and how approach with everything you do. I guarantee it'll help make you a better individual and it'll help your crew. When you're discussing clips, rather than speaking about the person's name, speak about the position on the floor. Lead is too far out. Lead needs to close down. Center, you're a little bit on a 45. We want you more flat back to the sideline. Okay, trail, a little bit too far out, follow that play in. So rather than putting a name in there, now you're just talking about position. We're human. Let's take out the human or the personal factor when we're talking about this. This would be matter of fact to make each other better. Use basketball terminology and be specific. Stick to the facts. I really, at the end of the day, don't want to hear your opinion. There's no philosophy on this when we're looking at plays and clips. It's you were standing here, you should have been here. This is a diagonal drive. There's contact on the arm. Misplay, correct play, where were we standing, how and why. Okay? Not, well, I thought that this play here, no, take out the I thought. Just be very matter of fact and be specific with it. And again, communicate the rule book. Our post games, I just talked about this, but rather than feeling or thinking, I saw. So what did you see? It's okay. You might not have seen it. That's okay. Sometimes we have an open look. Sometimes we have a closed look. Yes, it can be in your primary. Yes, it can be close to you. And yes, you can make incorrect no call or just even an incorrect call. Don't guess. It's okay. But tell the crew and the evaluator what you saw. When you ask questions to one another, don't say you got that play wrong or set somebody up for failure, alluding that they got the play wrong. Just ask them, what did you have on that play? Specifically, what I like to say, what did you see on that play? Again, it's what they saw. Don't bring in the opinions, stick to the facts, be willing to be wrong. And ask about your own plays. It builds credibility, not weakness. I'll be the first one to send out clips about mistakes that I've made. I'll be the first one to ask everybody about, situations that they saw. Do you have anything for me? It's okay. We all make mistakes. We're human. Timeliness. I see this in post games. I wouldn't say often, but just something to help you with the crew. Ask questions in a timely manner. When the evaluator enters, it's the evaluator's time. Let the evaluator ask the questions. You're not the evaluator. You're part of the crew. Whether you're the crew chief or you're the first-year rookie on the crew, whether it's your first provincials, whether it's your second basketball game and you have someone from the development team there, allow yourself to let the evaluator do the work. They're there for a reason. That's not your job, okay? Especially with the mentorship program here, we got to differentiate when we can mentor our mentees and when we just have to let the evaluator do the job, and then we can work afterwards. Ask about your own plays to the evaluator or crew, and ask about plays that are possibly dual coverage. You don't want to ask about other people's plays. So if I'm working with Jake, and Jake had a tough play on the opposite side, in front of the evaluator, I am not going to ask the evaluator or Jake in front of the evaluator about that play. But before the evaluator came in, I may have asked Jake about that play, which then Jake will now have the opportunity to ask about his own play. That's his play. He's got to own it. It's not my responsibility. The evaluator may bring it up, and then Jake will have a response. It's not my job to protect or try to insert or embarrass or bring negative attention. And again, speak the facts, not your opinions. With our assigners, evaluators, mentors, really, I think there's been a common theme here. If we could summarize this presentation, it's just be a good person. The better person you are, the more you focus on yourself to become better. You look at learning, the how, the why, the better you'll be with all these parties that we're talking about. So take advantage of the expertise around you. Ask if they've seen improvement. Be specific. Like if you go up to one of your evaluators or an assigner and say, hey, do you think I've improved? Be specific. Hey, how do you feel I'm doing in lead now? Am I getting into the proper position? How would you deal with this situation? I had this unique play the other day. How would I deal with that? So seek out those opportunities to improve. Again, putting it on yourself. The more you put it on yourself, the better you'll become, and the better you'll be able to communicate because you'll be in the rule book, you'll see more basketball plays, you'll be able to speak the language. And implement their suggestions, the point of emphasis, the criteria. If your boss at work tells you to do something and then you go and do the exact opposite and then you're wondering why you're not getting promoted, well, it's a pretty easy answer. You didn't do as they asked. So if you're thinking, hey, why am I not getting the assignments that I want, maybe look in the mirror. Look at am I implementing the suggestions? Am I doing a yeah but in the locker room? I think it's just very matter of fact. These are our points of emphasis for the year. This is what Bill Crowley wants. This is what Jake Steinbrenner wants. However they want me to referee, I'm going to referee that way because those are the points of emphasis. And at the end of the day, when I call that and a coach is mad at me, the answer is simple. These are our points of emphasis for the year. You got the memo. If the coach still wants to be mad, we deal with it. And at the end of the day, you have your boss supporting you. You have Jake. You have Bill Crowley saying, no, that's a guard play foul. No, that's too rough. That's freedom of movement. They'll support you because it falls within the criteria. So just some final things here. Put the game and crew before yourself. Be humble. Humility is key. Have the confidence to believe in yourself and believe in the others around you. Your success is determined by your professionalism. Increased professionalism will promote better communication. And honestly, do people want to work with you? Do people in your association want to work with you? I think that's a really key thing to ask. As for professional referees, and just kind of closing off here before we go to questions, the best referees are the strongest communicators. I said that right at the beginning. Professionalism is mandatory, but I think the most important piece is you don't need to be a professional referee to demonstrate that you are a professional. You have every opportunity to show that you're professional every single day that you step on the floor, regardless of what level, and start now, stay committed to it, and at the end of the day, you're probably going to be pretty happy with your growth and success on the floor. Putting it all into perspective, it's never about you, it's never about us, it'll never be about us, it's about the game, it's about the people, so keep it in perspective. It's just basketball. There's so many other things that are more important. Thanks, Jake.
Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you going through that. And you were concerned that you might not get it all in, and actually you breezed through it fairly quickly. So if you do have questions, now's the time to type them into the box. I do have one question so far. Matt, how would you deal with within the crew itself, you have an individual ego who may be not willing to listen to everybody's opinion or everybody's input. I think quite often that may occur between less experienced officials with an experienced crew chief. How would you deal with the ego situation?
Again, I think it's really how you say things, but you're never going to be wrong being honest. So you have to have the spine to communicate that to whatever the situation is. And because this is more of a vague scenario, we don't have something specific, but be willing to be honest with that person, be willing to address what specifically the issue is. Okay? Don't, like, if they have an ego, then there's probably something that they said specifically that made you uncomfortable. So don't say, you've got a big ego. Think, hey, you said this and I'm unsure about that, or that's making me uncomfortable. But bring it to the attention of the crew. And as a rookie or as someone that's less experienced, don't be afraid to communicate. Again, we're all human. Like experience is just years, and years with experience, yeah, there's some certain things that people can offer you, but at the end of the day, we got to take care of one another. So be willing to stand up and be firm, but be fair. And again, it's all how you pursue it, how you say it.
Yes, excellent. I think I'm going to jump in on that one a little bit too, because um, I think we get asked a lot of questions which are really statements from coaches, and when we turn around and put the onus back on them, eh, that usually works because now they need to explain. If you get a statement supposedly posed as a question from a coach, and you're able to turn it around and say, hey, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean about that, coach. Now you've put them into explaining themselves further. That may be sufficient for them to just let it go, or now the focus is not on you. And I think we can take that into the locker room as well. If a crew chief says something that you think is not what's been taught at clinics, certain mechanics aren't being followed or observed. I think it's important that the whole crew seeks clarification on that, and you can ask a polite question of a crew chief, even if he's got a huge ego, and put the onus on him to explain himself further. So I think that removes the ego and it puts it into just like getting down to the real facts here of the matter. I've got another question now.
Definitely.
So how do you deal with a partner who is either selling you out to coaches or disagreeing with all your calls? Would you deal with that on court or post game, or just pass it on to the assigner? So let's start.
Um,
Let's break it
I
down.
definitely,
Sorry, Matt.
yeah.
Let's break that down.
It's,
So the first part is, how do you deal with a partner who is either selling you out to coaches or disagreeing with all your calls?
okay. Well, it's a good question.
Oh, it's
Really,
loaded.
at the end of the
Loaded.
day, I think it's a loaded question. Yeah. Um, I'm gonna I'm not gonna dodge this, but I'm gonna talk about it from a standpoint of take responsibility for yourself. So if you're the person that's selling out your crew, then you need to look in the mirror and really think and evaluate why you're on the floor. Because one of you, even if you thought you were the best official on that floor that night, if whether it's a two-person or a three-person game, if your crew's out of sync, you're all terrible because you're only as strong as the weakest person on the crew. So you have to take that responsibility. If you're dealing with that with an individual, I think you need to stand up to that individual immediately. That's something briefly in a timeout. And how you know that or how that comes across, I'm not quite sure. But you just need to address that and say, hey, next time you're in front of the coach after one of my calls, just tell him I'll be over there next time and I'll give him an answer. So again, you're not accusing that person of talking behind your back, but you're saying, you know what, I'll take responsibility for my calls. If someone's questioning every call that you're making, then I'd really question where they're looking. So this is a loaded question, but I would have no problems telling someone, you know what, you're talking about all my calls. What are you refereeing, my primary? So you could, depending on who you're working with, that might be the approach. But for the most part, again, you don't want to come across as confrontational. So you want to deal with it in a way that is going to allow you to take some of the attention off of that situation. So it might be as simple as, hey, you know what, we keep talking about my plays in the timeout here, and I'm starting to lose focus. Do you mind if we talk about some of those plays in the locker room versus on the floor? So again, defer it. I think with the whole question too about talking about, do you address it in the timeout, the halftime, the post game, or you just go straight to the evaluator? I think you do everything, or just whatever fits. So that might be a halftime conversation. It might be a post game. You might be able to do it at a timeout. But the one thing I would say is if you're leaving the gym with that information inside and you haven't used the timeout, the halftime, or the post game, and then you're going to communicate that to the assigner or the evaluator, then you actually haven't done your job communicating. You have to take responsibility for yourself and for the crew, deal with that first, and if there's a larger issue that needs to be addressed where it wasn't able to be resolved, then you could bring that forward to the evaluator or the person that you need to bring that to.
Yes, excellent. Furthermore, with the whole on-court thing, I think we have to give coaches and people, your own crew mate, let's say you're in a 3-person crew, you have to give coaches the credit that if you're doing your job, I mean, if somebody's selling you out, like Matt says, that the whole crew's going to go downhill. But coaches aren't stupid. If you're doing your job, they know who's at fault here. So, you just got to keep your nose to the grindstone, do your job, and in the end, I think most coaches will know who's the professional official. As far as post game, yeah, I think you have to stand up for yourself. I would not create an argument, but at the same time, you do have to stand up and show that you're not going to be a pushover. Taking it to the assigner, nah, I'm not in favor of that. I think it needs to be dealt with peer-to-peer and resolved there. Now, if it continues, and word gets out about people like this, and so when word gets out, somebody will take it eventually to an assigner. But I would not be the first person to run to the assigner. I think that has to be dealt with in let's call it in-house. All right, we got another question.
Absolutely.
So when a coach questions you as the non-calling official, how is the best way to address the coach about the call? How should you address that coach? And how is it best to communicate this question to your partner? The second part's kind of confusing.
Yeah, I understood it though. First of all, we all have eyes, and we talked about the self-talk about being the calling official versus non-calling official. So if you're the calling official and you're opposite the table, you're aware that that coach is upset about that call. So you should be in your memory bank saying, okay, we had a shooting foul down here. Coach is talking to my partner, so they're probably upset with it. So they may have a question for me. So you automatically should know, like, if you don't have that awareness, then that's going to be your first issue in not dealing well with the coach. But the partner that gets stuck over in front of the coach, there's a few ways to go about it. First of all, you have to let the coach come to you, right? And there's different approaches. They could be making statements. They could be going off the handle. They could be polite. Everything's going to require a different response. I'd say 9 times out of 10, my response to a coach like that is I try to use first names with coaches all the time. So whoever that coach was, so if it was, let's use Jake's name. So I'd say, Jake, I was on the other side of the floor when that call happened, but so-and-so will be over here soon enough to answer your question about it. So give your partner the opportunity. If the coach is saying something more of a blanket statement, which we always get, is, so-and-so is killing us. Down here we got this call, down here we got this call, or you guys are being inconsistent. Well, now he's really talking about the crew, but he used a name in there. So you might use a statement along the lines of, hey, Jake, can you specifically tell me which plays you're talking about with consistency? So as Jake said, putting it back on the coach. So now you're getting them to be specific. And if they can't come back with a specific comment to you saying, well, I feel guard play on both ends is being called different. Okay, I can watch for that. But if they say, well, everything, all right, well, conversation's over. So to me, it's very matter of fact. You just say, next time, next time Karen's over here, she'll have an answer for you. And just leave it at that. If the coach keeps coming, you turn and look at the coach and say, hey, Jake, I understand you want an answer to that question, but I can't give you the answer. So you're going to have to wait. It's very matter of fact with that.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to make any assumptions and say something out of turn when we're not 100%. That being said, and Matt alluded to it in the presentation, I think it's important that as a crew, we're also connected in terms of understanding and being aware of what our partners are calling. If you're not aware of most of the plays that have been called, regardless of whether you were watching in another area, you need to have the feel of what's being called in order to stay consistent throughout a game. So it shouldn't be a complete surprise either. Um, do we have any more questions? Otherwise, we can wrap this up. I do want to give you guys a chance. We do have some more minutes left to do that. So please get them into the question box as quickly as possible. Um, and if we don't, then I'll give everybody another 15 seconds or so to I can't believe people are ready to go to bed at 9:38 p.m. here. So come on, wake up, you guys. Um, all right, so far nothing coming through. I guess you covered all the bases, Matt. I can certainly say that a lot of the things that you've covered, and it's no different than making the wrong decision mechanically or making the wrong decision in a judgment. Our communication uh, can quite often kill us, or it can be very effective in diffusing situations. But if you do not communicate, if you never put yourself out there and risk this, and even with between crews and peer to peer, if we do not communicate, that doesn't help anything at all. We're going to make mistakes. I've made every mistake under the book. I've been unprofessional. I've been also been very assertive at times when congenial should have been the approach. So it falls into the category of putting yourself out there and putting yourself at risk and trying to make things better by engaging. I got more calls or more questions coming in now, so I can rattle on and people want to shut me up, I guess. All right, so being a senior ref, what are what are some key pregame info you could share?
Uh, that's definitely dependent on the crew. I'm not a cookie cutter pregame person, so I don't have a pregame sheet that says that I have to do this, 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 this. Pregames evolve from start of the season towards end of the season. But it's really just a pregame, in my opinion, is to make the crew comfortable. You should be coming into that, you should know the rules, you should know the mechanics, okay? We might review a few things just to refresh our minds, get us on track, but it's really about getting us comfortable with one another, okay? Some people like to be more serious, other people like to joke, some people like to listen to music. For bringing something to the pregame, just know what your style is, but also be open to understand what other people's style is. Some people on the line are going to laugh because they know this all too well. I'm not an information overload person in the pregame, so if I'm not the senior official on the crew and someone's going in depth through 1,000 things, I usually shut down on point 3, but I know I'm prepared for the game. I still listen, I still take it in, but I know mentally what I need to do to prepare for that game. So find that fit. It's not that you're not listening, but you got to find how do you prepare yourself, and also how do you prepare the others around you.
Yep, exactly. So along the lines of communication, and I'm going to ask you, Matt, to answer in a two-person crew, but if you could just sort of quickly review how you communicate a U file or a technical file in terms of calling official and non-calling official. What are the communication factors involved?
Okay. So again, there's 2 points to this. If you already have signaled a tech.
I think we just lost Matt. Matt, are you there? Volume cut out?
that time to talk with one another.
Okay, Matt, we lost communication there during that whole time that you were speaking. Um,
Okay.
all the attendees and myself couldn't hear you. Um, so you did a really
Can
good.
you hear me now?
We can hear you now. So if you wouldn't mind repeating that.
Yeah, so I can actually do the Cole's notes because this will be a little bit more succinct now that I know what I'm talking about. Um, but if it's an obvious, like you've already signaled the unsportsmanlike technical, allow that partner to report, meet in the middle, stay open to the benches and players, so you're aware of anything else that may happen, a retaliation, whatever it is. But if it's an obvious play, let the person report so everybody in the gym will know what happened. Then they can come together, give you some more information. 14, technical foul for swearing, going to go administer it. Also what that does is now you know that a player swore at your partner. So if you have another player that swears at you, your leash is the exact same as what their leash was. So you can be consistent as a crew now and you understand. If it's an unsportsmanlike or technical foul where as the there's not an immediate signal or as the partner you don't know, then as the calling official you have to be aware. If your partner looks puzzled, then what I do in that situation, if I've given a player a technical and my partner's looking like what's going on, I go to the middle immediately and tell them what I have before I report the technical foul, and then from there we can go and administer the situation. So both are just a different style or approach that I have, but if it's clear and obvious, allow them to report and then meet. And if it's not clear or obvious, get together first because then it looks like you're getting the call right and it'll help the credibility of the crew.
Good, good, good. Okay, so we did have an audio breakdown, and then when we came back, it didn't have the broadcast started again, and I think Matt started to review what he was discussing before I could punch the broadcast button again. So we may have missed a couple of things, but it's 9:45, so between 9:43 and 44 on the replay, you can go and catch all of that. So I'm gonna shut her down. There are a couple of things I'd like to announce in closing. First of all, Matt, great job. I want to thank you for taking the time between road trips and your job and all the other things that are keeping you busy to present to this excellent presentation. I know it's stuff that are near and dear to you. Communication is one of the things that you do very, very well, and we certainly can all learn from this. We do have two more webinars coming up. The next one is already next week, the 14th of January. That'll be Riley Carrison, and then on the 28th will be Stephanie Nordley. We're trying to get all of our webinars done before February because that's when everybody will be working just about every night. So that's the reason we're jamming them into January here. There's also a chance we may do one more in February to get people ready for playoffs, but that is just a tentative announcement for the time being. As far as national appointments, there is a memo on the ABOA website, refalberta.ca. The memo itself has my ugly mug on it, and so you want to click that memo, read it, and there's a link for you to use that form in order to apply for Spring Nationals. Now, this is just for Spring Nationals. We will have another deadline in April for Summer Nationals, and we're at this point in time, we don't have much information about that anyway. So that covers off the national appointment stuff. I know that Morgan Monroe is dealing with the local board contacts and presidents, sending back the exam information, as well as the most commonly incorrect questions, and that has been posted to the website as well as a couple other of announcements. And we just received another post play from Cabo, and that just came into Bill Carr's inbox, so that'll get posted when Ken has a chance in the next few days. So look for the memo for next week's webinar. And anyway, if if there's nothing further, I think we've covered everything off. So thanks very much for your time this evening. Appreciate you taking part, and spread the word. Communicate. Anyway, take care, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everyone.
You bet.